Morgan Hagar has actually come up from Los Angeles, and Morgan is actually probably one of the earlier photographers who actually became involved in the project. And if I was to recant how this project came about, or the concept of Photojournale came about, it really was about bringing together stories. And I believe in the craft of storytelling, and in fact the book itself tells a story as well. And I'll probably go into that a little bit later, but the craft of storytelling is really what we're about and what we're celebrating tonight. And Photojournale was set up to bring stories together, and it had a fairly open tenet, I would say, or premise, and that was to basically look at photo documentary stories from around the world and bring them together. To do that, I had to actually go out and canvass people to become a part of it. And in fact, one of the first persons I actually canvassed was Mike Fox. And Mike actually said, yes, I will publish on your website. And this is back in the early days, and really, this started as and as it is today, it's just a passion. It's really something that I put a lot of time and effort into fairly consistently, and have done so for the last 5 or 6 years. And it's grown, and it continues to grow, and it actually has a new group of photographers coming through. And what I've noticed is that we've shifted from being European and North American and potentially Australian, or very, very Anglo, or Anglo-Celtic type of language bases, into more Asian photographers. So there's a new wave of photojournal photographers coming through who are working out of countries like the Philippines, Indonesia, China, Vietnam, India, Pakistan, so and also the Middle East, and occasionally out of Africa as well. So I owe it to the people who actually invested their time and their confidence into the project at an early stage to begin to bring these stories to life. And Mike was one of these people. So in fact, that led me to invite Mike, or at least begin to kind of pull together a group of people who would actually begin to represent the photojournal spirit in some ways, and bring that talent in also to edit the book. Interestingly enough, when I think you were the first person I actually called. I think I sent Mike a message probably a year and a half ago and said, I need to talk to you. And I got this note back saying, yeah, okay, when do you want to talk, or how can we talk? And we basically just said, look, Photojournale has some incredible work inside the website. Let's bring it to life in a way of actually beginning to elevate the group of photographers within that community, and basically bring some value out of this online existence. And so I set the path of putting together an editorial team that basically represented what I could see: an Australian perspective, a North American perspective, a European perspective, and then also an Asian perspective as well. And we basically chopped and diced the site, and none of the photographers whose work is in the book actually got to choose their own work. So it was actually fairly, we were fairly rigid in the process of actually making sure that no one actually, reviewed their own work. That it was actually, a fellow photographer who actually said that's a good piece of work. And the story came together. So Morgan also contributed as one of the early photographers. The interesting thing, and I know that Morgan will probably talk about this in his work, and when we introduce him into the picture a little bit further on in this presentation, Morgan and I share something very, very unique. We photograph walls, or we photograph political barriers. I happened to be in Berlin prior to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Obviously back in '89, I think it is. And what became obvious to me while I was there is this strange political barrier through the middle of this city that actually carved it in half was actually going to fall apart. And so I set about this task of actually walking along the wall and spent 4 days photographing panel by panel, just a memory of that wall. Interestingly enough, I came across Morgan's work, and Morgan actually also is a photographer who realises that, or someone who also shares this belief in that political barriers or this physical barrier that is, drawn through, different geographies actually presents a problem, and a very, very strong emotional problem, and a political problem that we need to look at and address. So he also has in his work actually looked at these political barriers as well, and has actually began to make more series around political barriers. But I'll let him talk about that.